Okay. Let me see who's here. Somebody just came to the door. Hold on. Oh, it's Angela. It's Angela.
Oh, yay! Yay! Come on.
Kerry Kaye.
Hi, Kerry
She's
Kaye.
doing a
How
little thing on
are you?
TikTok.
Hi. This is
All
Angela's
right.
book that I have.
All
It's
right.
called-
Got your book.
Oh my gosh, no way.
Yeah, Awakening from Unconscious Resentment, learning to uncover the hidden saboteurs and that are hindering your life and relationships.
Yeah, they're sabotaging your life and relationships. That's right.
Yeah, so this is her book by Angela.
Sorry.
I saw on your TikTok that you're in the process of writing another one.
Oh, well,
so I'm looking forward to that one.
I wrote another one called let's see if I have it in here. What's a book I call Storms in Life? What was it called?
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Answers to life or something. I don't know.
Well, anyways, I wrote another book about, it's basically just positive things through different areas in your life that you're struggling with,
Okay.
like different topics. Like maybe say one day you're depressed, right? And you're needing to come out of that depression. So it's just got some encouraging words, affirmations, scriptures, and then a real life story of somebody who's been like in that situation and how they dealt with it and how they got through it. So each chapter, it's kind of like different topics like that. So
Okay. Now, Angela and Dan, I have a question for you.
Yes.
If people are going to write their story or to write a book, how would you give them? How would you encourage them to do that, even if they're scared?
okay, good question.
I would say, I was told when I was starting to write my book, I wrote the book Eyewitness, the shocking insider story of Jehovah's Witnesses. And it was very traumatic. I was just out and I was scared. And one of the publishers out of New York said, Dan, that book will heal you if you write it. So
Exactly.
yes. What's that called when it's when they call it healing you? There's a word for it.
Yes, there is a word for it.
Catharsis.
Yes.
It'll be a catharsis for
Catharsis.
you. So I wrote it and I cried. I was scared. I was scared to put it out. I was worried about my family. And I put it out anyway. And you know what? I did heal by writing it, and lots of people healed. Lots of people read it 3 or 4 times. It did really good, but it was called Eyewitness, the shocking insider story of Jehovah's Witnesses. But since it opened the door to write another 6 books. And so we got lots and lots.
I know.
They often say that you have to write the book before you write the book.
Yes.
And I found that too, because I wrote my memoir. I entered it into a Hay House contest.
Yes.
And family found out that I was writing and started to persecute the family, me, my husband, even though I'd been out for 20 years. And I went in the bathroom and I threw up. I'm like, oh my God, I don't think I could go through this. So for me, I wrote it and I shelved it. And I immediately started writing the book that I'm writing now.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
And even now, my editor, we're going through this book, Liberty TEAS, right now. And once I finish this one, she says, you really should go back and rewrite that one. And I'm like, you know what? I think so. And I have different ideas about it now. So I think it's really good. Even if it's for yourself, get it out and get through that trauma. It's very healing.
It is. It really, really is. And Dan and I were talking about that I really need to redo my book and the beginning of it, because in that one that you have there, it really gets good as far as breaking down the different areas of life and where we're feeling the resentment and not having our voices, and then getting our voices, and then all the lessons I learned through what I went through, but trying to tell that story of what I went through didn't come off real well, I don't feel. And so I know I need to rewrite it, but then I hesitate and I think, but then at the same token, that is my story. It is, and it is cathartic for sure, but that really wasn't why I wrote it. I really did write it because I really wanted to help people to uncover the hidden saboteurs that are hindering their life and relationships because of the resentment that's buried inside of them. And if we don't get that stuff out of us, and really deal with it and be honest about things and get your voice, then the rest of your life is going
Comes
to
out
suffer.
to your hands too.
And
Comes out to
Right.
your hands through the writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And you got to think of it too, Angela. You realize that you became a better writer because you see that, I would change this to that. Well, maybe you would just use a different phrasing or edit it a little bit differently, and you could still like republish.
yeah, it's just that my story in the beginning is just I don't know. I just have to figure out a better way to present the beginning chapters about my about my life. That's the part that I feel like that people can't get past that story of my life part and then really be able to enjoy the lessons that I learned. And I just have to figure out a way to write it so that it's palatable for everybody. So anyway.
I have to say though, when I read the beginning part of your book, it was very helpful to me.
Really? Well, I'll tell you what, I say the last 3/4 of the book is the best part. And the beginning.
Yeah,
that's good to know.
Yeah, it is good.
But I was like, your story was raw, and it was just your story, and everybody's story is worth something, and people can resonate if there was something in there. I mean, you were in the Worldwide Church of God, so that was a very similar thing. So I looked at that like, oh my gosh, she went through something horrible and very, I could see how that could happen, and we could resonate with your story because it's we experience similar traumas.
Yeah, and interesting that I had to unfortunately then share after that about my second cult I got into with my ex. And that's where it gets weird, because did I share that he married my sister?
Yes, yes.
Raw and real,
raw and real.
I didn't disown her for it.
I remember.
Yeah. But anyway, that was a channeling spirit, that was coming through my husband. But anyway, that's the one that I learned more lessons from that part of my life and that 24-year marriage than I did in the first part, I feel. But anyway, I just felt like, what? There's so many wonderful things that you can learn if you can just learn how to get that resentment stuff out. And that's why I wanted to write the book, Awakening from Unconscious Resentment, because that's killing all of us. We don't speak to that stuff. We just bury it. We don't want to bring it up for transformation because it's too painful. But if we don't, the rest of our life is affected by it. So that I felt like I needed to write it.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, you faced I was talking earlier about the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, and I was I was comparing it to the book of Revelation and John of Patmos, and that was his hero's journey. Yeah. And you really, you were sharing with us your hero's journey. So I think it's important that people, for healing process, even if they journal and write for themselves, even if it's good. I remember when I was doing my working title was Saints of Armageddon, and I cried and cried and cried, but I needed to face that shadow. I needed to confront it so that I could put it past me so that I can move forward. And it was very helpful. So
yeah, and it's what's kind of cool about it now that we look back after 7 or 10 books we've written, you see a pathway. You see what got you out of the witnesses, like mine was a divine discontent. So I realized my book, the part of the way I've got out of the witnesses was I was getting unhappier and unhappier. And inside something was saying, did they lie to me? I think I've been lied to. And there was this awakening within. So that book helps a lot of people in different religions. And so, but it was only a very early part of the hero's journey. Then we wrote Surrender. Surrender was when I was like, God, I don't have a lot of tools. I spent 40 years in this religion. I don't know how to live life. And so I went through this surrendered state. And then we wrote about all the miracles, right, that happened from surrender. And then we saw a spiritual understanding of it, which was a Max Heindel book, which was a spiritual guy. And he wrote about the divine order of alchemy, the ancient secret to union with God. But this was a pathway. This was my pathway. And then we wrote Ye Are Gods, which was about divine union. And then we started writing about all the miracles. Once we got all this stuff out, it was like we wrote a book called Magic Money. We wrote a book called How to Heal the World. We wrote another book called, what was it called? No, the last one, Whispers of Wisdom.
Oh, yeah.
And they're powerful, and you can see the growth. You can see what I was when I first wrote. You had mentioned it, how we're not the same, but you see this road I traveled, and everyone's got a road, and everybody's got a hero journey. The only warning that I would say where someone really saved me, Kerry, and who's ever else on here, was becoming a victim. I started to really get into my negative story about I was a witness and this happened, and a friend of mine came up and says, I understand you. I know, Dan, it was painful, but she said, do you want to get better? And the lady was a millionaire. The lady was very wealthy. And I didn't know at one point she was a witness too. And yeah, she didn't tell me for 2 years. She's like, what's it matter what religion we are? She was a witness. And the lady went into the medical field. Her husband became an anesthesiologist and they turned their life around. And anyway, so she told me, she says, as long as you keep telling the story like that, and I want to say this, it isn't that there isn't a time to tell our story. There's a time to tell it, and there's a time to tell it in a little bit different way, other than, this happened to me, and just that same energy that when you left is still there 20 years later. That would be what I would call a victim. Not that you can't talk about these things later, but you know what? That lady saved me because I was falling in love with my witness story, my victim story.
Yeah.
And that's just part of the journey. There's a successful part of the journey that wants to meet us too. We started out here and here's where I ended up. So now we talk about whole different things. I changed my channel from, arguing with governing body on YouTube to now doing TikTok videos about transformation and things that I love.
Exactly. Because you have the books that show that journey, but then you're giving the people a roadmap on how to heal and what comes next.
Yes, and it's for everybody.
Right? So
Everyone thinks one of the things I'll tell you, a secret is groups. When you get into groups, you realize you're not the only one who is screwed over. If you get into a big group like a inner child journey, you'll be in there maybe with 300 people that have been screwed over by religions, by husbands, by this, and they need just as much healing as we do. And that was one of the things groups did for me. I saw the lady across from me. I said, oh my God, she was raped by her dad. Oh my God, this guy was raped by his preacher. And I went, oh my God, I don't really have a story compared to these people. So that group was a reflection back to me that more than this has happened to more than one person. You know what I mean?
Right. You realize that your story, that other people had similar stories, that just in different circumstances.
Yes.
So you resonated with each other, and you go, oh, okay. I'm allowed to heal.
Yes.
I'm allowed to move on. So. And that's good, and that's what happens in the hero's journey. Eventually, the hero comes back to his community with the elixir.
Yes.
So he comes back and shares his story, but he basically has good news, right? So he comes back to his community and he shares what he has learned.
Yes, and then it cycles again. So the next time, instead of religion, your wife leaves you, or your job, you lose your job, or someone dies in the family close to you. So the hero journey starts again from that sadness and healing to coming back up out of it. It's a circle of life,
It is.
Don't you just wonder what our hero's journey is going to be with all these wars going on right now? It's like, at least for sure, I feel that we're all going to want war no more when it's all said and done. We're all going to be like done with that,
I think so. I think that's what kind of like prompted me to come on today, because it was my healing. I needed to come and share, some of the things that I had learned, and my story may have resonated, or the information that I brought could resonate with some people. My people will come, and I guess I needed to just say, hey, I see what's happening here. There's a massive brainwashing thing going on so that people will do unthinkable things. And a lot of people are triggered by the terminology that's being used. So I wanted to bring in another perspective of what I learned of that terminology. And so I shared about the hero's journey and the book of Revelation being actually John's hero's journey. And they used allegory. He used the allegory within this great dream. Look at it as something of an inner transformation that he was going through. That's what he was trying to share. But decoding it is the interesting thing, because if people take, I was saying that's the tragedy of the book, is that people looking at it so literal has catastrophic effects on society.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
Right.
where your attention is, sometimes you got to take a rest. Me and Angela sat down and said, what are we doing? What are we doing? How much time are we spending doing this? And so we pulled
Yeah.
back a little bit, and I'm telling you, it was so wonderful. And I'm like, I can pray for the president. I can, you know, whoever it is, I don't
Yep.
care who it is, but I can send good
Yeah.
energy there. And I can also do my journey. I have a journey too. I
Yes.
don't have to be so consumed by all this stuff, right, Angela?
That's right, Dan.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I think the world is going through a transformation right now,
No
and
doubt
there
of
are
it.
Putting it mildly.
there's putting it mildly, there's big lessons to be learned. So what is it? The phoenix is and out of chaos, what is it? Out of chaos
Yep.
comes peace. So
Transformation
but
is coming, and we're in an evolution right now. A lot of
yeah,
people are like,
so
when you
yeah,
don't know, we've never been in this sort of thing with this type of exposure, with these type of things. So something is going to evolve, and I think it's going to be something pretty good, because everybody's awakening. Everybody's starting to try to love each other. They're like, we don't
yeah,
like this media separating us. You can see the world protesting against war. We don't want war. So something's
right.
happening. Some evolution is
I feel
happening,
it.
you know?
I definitely agree with you. I think that it's prompting, if you want, you see what's happening, people need to learn from this.
Yes,
Hopefully not,
yes. Beautiful.
people are going to learn from this, but we are going to rise from it too at the same
Absolutely. I
time.
agree with
And
that.
and to keep your sanity, I think sometimes you have to turn off the news at times. You have to turn off social media and put your mind into something good, something creative, maybe writing, maybe reading, painting, whatever you like, cooking. Do something that is good for your mental health during this
Yes,
time.
that's
Do what
good.
you can do, but you can't do it all.
Right.
So
I agree.
And you'll
totally.
actually get a reset. I did a
yes,
video today. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but I was talking about that when you get into the silence, when you give yourself permission to rest. There's a great book called Your Permission to Rest. I'll just tell you, it's not ours, but
okay,
it's a lady that made a lot of money.
Her last name is White. I
Yeah,
can remember
by
that.
walking
right,
away
okay,
when her business stopped. She would just go fishing with her husband, and they would make more money. And so I did my video today, and I said I had two $70,000 jobs back to back by going fishing one day. And then I realized I got $2 million ideas in meditation, because I took the time
wow,
to stop, get still, and listen. I got $2 million ideas, and we acted on them. $1 million ideas when we started our company. The second $1 million idea came when our company stopped in '08. And I went into the silence, and the next thing you know, we were on television. That was a miracle, right, Angela?
Yes.
And it was $1 million idea, and we acted on it. We were on TV. That was the end of it. Business kicked up again. But there's
yeah,
a lot happening. I talk a lot on my channel about affirmations, but I was talking
right,
today about unplugging, what you said, Kerry Kaye, from media, taking a sabbatical, because what happens is you reset. You get
right,
out of your left brain, which is trying to figure everything out and watching all the channels. I better turn on this. I better turn on, and your mind just sucks all that in, but there's no room. It's so filled with fear, with hate, with, they're doing this. We got, and there's no room for spirit to connect. And so anyway, I
yes,
shared that today.
Hey,
What you
Kerry
think?
Kaye, in my
yeah,
book, I'm going to think that's about halfway in there. I talk about that book, Permission to Rest,
Yeah.
and what I got out of it. That incredible book. Oh my gosh,
It's amazing.
It's
Okay.
amazing. So yeah, and I think in the
Oh,
back of the
it's chapter 12.
okay, yeah, and in the back of the book, I
Yeah.
referenced the books that I used, the stories I
Okay.
used, and so it's back there too, so you could get the name of the book and her name who wrote that.
Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I really love that whole thing about, because she literally shows how in her life, her husband and I would realize that when things started going weird, where mistakes happened, things got destroyed, uncanny things that shouldn't really be going on, a lot of them, there's like, okay, we know that that's a sign that we're not in the flow, I guess you would
Pushing
say.
or grinding.
You're pushing, grinding, forcing, saying, well, I guess we're going to have to advertise more. You're in this kind of a mode, right? And it's like, whoa.
Anxiety. Yep.
And so they would stop, literally shut down the business, even though they need the money, and just go on a vacation or go on as many days as they could manage to get off and just be in nature, be with God. And literally, when they came back, each and every time that they did that, because it's almost like they were saying, Lord, we've come out of trusting the universe, trusting God, whatever you want to call God. We've come out of alignment with that. And when they would get back into alignment with that, then everything started flowing again. So when they got back, they literally had thousands of checks in the mail and phone calls galore, wanting them to do, coaching or whatever it was that they were doing. And it was just like, they were like, wow. All just from saying, God, I trust you, or universe, I trust you. And by getting in that alignment, everything flowed like crazy. And I'm talking, in the book, she tells about a lot of money came in just from doing nothing. Now, Dan and I, one time, we were really, really broke. And we had told the guy that we're not going to do your job. This is not for us. As a matter of fact, we don't want to work for you anymore. And we really didn't need to be saying that at this time. We needed the money. We needed the job. And so Dan says, well, what are we going to do now? And he says, let's go fishing. So we went fishing on a beautiful lake, got in nature. And while we were fishing, a guy calls and he says, hey, Dr. Dan, you think you could come and take a look at this kitchen, for my old lady? And Dan's like,
young guy, he's about 20 years old.
He's like a swinger guy, And so we were like, yeah, we'll come over there tomorrow. So we go over there the next day. And just to make a long story short, we got a check for $6,500 that day.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And for many days after, every week after, for about 3 months, we got that same check.
Yeah.
That's great.
Right.
There's something to be said with not letting the world tire us out. They're trying to tire us out.
Yes.
So you need to take that time and step back. And I know for myself that I have been tired out. And every time I'm in that brain, I'll be exhausted and it can make you sick. So I turn to I had to turn to my art, and I'll start painting, and then pretty soon 3, 4, 5 hours goes by where I am in complete silence, just painting. And when I'm in that silence, that stream of information starts to come, and I get fresh new ideas for my projects, or I feel rested, and then I can come back to things and be useful.
Yeah.
It's like your spiritual antenna goes up.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yes, it does.
And the flow
it does.
happens. You just get back, do what you got to do to get back in the flow, right? Whatever that is. Take a walk in nature, sit by the ocean, sit by a river. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sketch something, make a phone call, whatever it is that you love to do, just something peaceful, and it just resets you.
Yeah, you got to get back into equilibrium, and not to get too spiritual, but the Christ, the spiritual dimension, is in between the two polar opposites, which is
left and right
brain, head in heavens, feet in the ground. So actually, the reset is putting you into the Christos, hanging between the two, the equilibrium. It's the activation. That's where a lot of your answers come, when you get a good reset like you're talking about.
Exactly. Yes. So
awesome.
Wow. I'm so glad you guys have come in today. Thank you.
Us too. Are you
I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Hey, we appreciate you too.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Love you too. Great to have you guys here, and mwah, love you all.